These are scenes from the torrential rain in Qingyuan City, Guangdong Province. People in Qingyuan said they had never witnessed such a large-scale rain in their lifetime. Residents said it's too terrifying. It feels like daytime has turned into night, with the entire sky darkened. The weather is extremely abnormal. Following this, torrential mountain floods surged into urban areas, submerging highways and numerous roads, sweeping away cars caught under bridges. Some suspension bridges were also washed away by the floodwaters. Residents on the ground floors were directly affected, as seen in the video, where despite several people using a sofa to block the door, it was little use against the raging floodwaters bursting in. Recently, the southern region of China has experienced extreme weather such as convection, storms, heavy rainfall, and hail. Since April 18th, most parts of Guangdong province have been hit by heavy or torrential rain, leading to multiple flooding crises. Reportedly, 32 hydrological stations in Guangdong province have exceeded the warning water level, and it's expected that some rivers will experience peak flow rates in the near future, with a record once-in-a-century flood possible. On the morning of April 21st, except for parts of Zhanjiang and eastern Guangdong, thunderstorm cloud systems still covered other areas of Guangdong. A total of 70 heavy rain warnings and 65 thunderstorm and gale warnings were issued across the province. The Canton Tower was struck by lightning 6 times within 1 hour. Many rivers, including the Bay River, experienced flooding exceeding the alert level, leading to localized urban waterlogging. Despite being hailed as China's third-largest supercity, Shenzhen was not spared from misfortune. According to an announcement from the Shenzhen Meteorological Bureau's official Weibo account on the 23rd, thunderstorm clouds affecting Shenzhen moved from west to east, triggering a yellow alert for heavy rain and thunderstorm wind. Videos posted by people showed that in the morning of April 23rd, the sky was shrouded in black clouds as if it was nighttime. Some people remarked it felt unreal, saying they had never seen such heavy rain in their lives. Multiple areas in Shenzhen raised to a red alert for heavy rain, with vehicles submerged on the streets and pedestrians crowded in subway stations. After the heavy rain, severe flooding occurred in many areas, with several roads and residential streets in Shenzhen turning into mini rivers. This is particularly evident on Mingzhi Avenue in Longhua, Shenzhen, where residents say every time there's heavy rain, the river's water level rises and floods the street. Qingyuan City, Guangdong Province, is located in the Pearl River Delta with a population of 4 million. The situation there was also dire. From the evening of April 19th to the morning of April 20th, mountain torrents surged onto the highways of the city, flooding numerous roads. Water even flooded into the high-speed rails. The scene was heart-stopping. Many trains stopped or returned to Qingyuan Station. People also captured the scene of chaos, showing that the Qingyuan section of the Shaoguan Highway turned into a surging river, with vehicles resembling floating boats that could be swallowed by floodwaters at any time. During the flooding, roads were submerged, cars washed away, houses soaked in water, and residents stranded. Many shops suffered severe losses. Mr. Mai, a resident of Yangshan County in Qingyuan City, told Southern Metropolis Daily, "The heavy rain lasted from the night of the 19th until 11 a.m. on the 20th. The deepest flood in Yangshan County reached about 80 centimeters, and the whole area was like a sea in the morning of the 20th. Many vehicles were washed away by the flood. People watched as cars were washed away under bridges, feeling helpless. People posted videos saying that the Longtang Bridge in Qincheng District was flooded. On the afternoon of April 23rd, the water level was higher than on the previous 2 days. The suspension bridge in Qingyuan's Zhaigang was also washed away by floodwaters, with water in the town reaching chest level. This is the Mingzhu Pier in Yingde, Qingyuan City. It has been damaged by the flood, but the authorities claim that the pier has not been impacted. Additionally, Yangshan Middle School in Qingyuan City experienced waterlogging, with water levels reaching 1.5 meters, flooding the first floor of school buildings. Over 700 students were trapped in the dorms. Nearly 7 hours later, the trapped students were finally evacuated. However, despite such devastating scenes, the reports from Chinese state media were downplayed, merely stating that the Qingyuan area of Guangdong was affected by heavy rain, resulting in waterlogs in villages, with many elderly and children trapped and having to seek help from the police. What's even more heartbreaking is that after the floodwaters receded, the streets were covered in mud. The roadside businesses were not spared, with some areas flattened, and residents suffering heavy losses. Some areas are still submerged, such as Aotou Village, Feilai Xia Town, where numerous houses are underwater, resulting in countless property losses. Here in Wanbu Town, Yingde City, it's now 11:30 a.m. on April 22nd, and the floodwaters have begun to recede. Earlier this morning, the water was up to knee level, but now it has completely subsided. Only a little is left. The water level on the road is still quite high, so vehicles still cannot pass through. In another area of Guangdong, Guangning County in Zhaoqing experienced the worst flood in history, with villages surrounded by floodwaters and streets turning into rivers. Guangdong's Shaoguan was also one of the hardest hit areas. After the torrential rain, the entire Shaoguan area was submerged, with streets turning into vast bodies of water, residents stranded, and floodwaters almost reaching the roofs of cars. According to the meteorological department, rainfall in Shaoguan increased sharply from the night of the 19th, reaching a historical peak by the afternoon of the 20th. In some areas, rainfall exceeded 200 millimeters in a short period. Locals described it as an extremely heavy rainstorm. In the Qingyuan district of Shaoguan, the walls of a neighborhood block collapsed during the torrential rain, flooding the compound instantly and trapping large numbers of vehicles in the water. Floodwaters overflowed, causing severe flooding in some residents' homes. In recent days, many main roads in Shaoguan have been severely flooded, and some sections were closed due to landslides and mudslides. Starting from April 20th, Foshan City in Guangdong also experienced heavy to torrential rains, with the highest accumulated rainfall in the city reaching 165 millimeters in the southwest of Sanshui, causing half of the city's towns and streets to issue red alerts for heavy rain. This is the Hecheng Park in Foshan, already submerged in water. The Foshan municipal government also issued an announcement on the 23rd, stating that on the evening of April 22nd, a ship carrying 4,907 tons of coiled steel sailed from Heshan to Fuzhou. At 9:20 p.m., while passing through the waters near the Jiujiang Bridge, the ship's left side scraped against the bridge's collision prevention pier. Subsequently, it ran aground in the waters near Denggan Island in the West River area, and eventually sank at 11:40 p.m. There were a total of 11 crew members on board, with 7 rescued, including the pilot, chef, crew members, and first mate, while the other 4 were missing. Preliminary investigations indicated that the accident was due to the flooding, which caused the crew to make mistakes in their operations. It's expected that Guangdong Province will continue to experience frequent rainfall in the coming week, with some areas possibly seeing moderate to heavy rain or even torrential rain. Currently, the water level in the Bay River in Guangdong has risen to its highest level since the early 1970s. The rainy season is expected to begin in the next few weeks, and if not handled properly, the water level will continue to rise, posing a significant threat to downstream residents. Some friends may not understand why there is such heavy rain in April, as it is not yet the rainy season. An engineer from a Guangdong flood control headquarters pointed out, this flood is mainly caused by extreme weather conditions, which have had a significant impact on the lives of residents in northern Guangdong, such as Qingyuan and Shaoguan. Riverbend Town in Shaoguan encountered mudslides, and villagers' houses were submerged in mud and water, resulting in severe disasters. Hu Xiao, chief meteorological analyst at China Weather Network, told the media that since entering the pre-flood season in South China this year, the subtropical high has been relatively strong and continuously supplying water vapor to South China. At the same time, cold air from the north continues to push southward. When it interacts with warm and humid airflow, it results in continuous heavy rainfall and severe convective weather. Additionally, with low-level shear vorticity, continuous moisture, and favorable dynamic lifting conditions, it is easy to form a train effect in the South China region, resulting in prolonged rainfall and a snowball effect. Multiple areas in Guangdong have suffered from floods, which has also sparked questioning from people. Why does Guangdong Province experience floods as soon as heavy rain falls? Some people believe that these floods are caused by authorities releasing floodwaters to protect Guangzhou downstream. Residents in Qingyuan told the media that the government did not notify them in advance when releasing floodwaters, resulting in them being flooded without any preparation. They believe that the government's flood release actions led to an abnormal rise in water levels, subsequently affecting surrounding villages and towns. According to reports, from April 19th to 20th, 4 hydrological stations in Qingyuan exceeded the warning line, with accumulated rainfall at 250 millimeters or more in 24 stations. It is reported that all 15 gates of the Feilaixia Reservoir in Qingyuan have been opened, and the water level has risen significantly, with the Bay River in a high flow state. The Reservoir Management Department stated that at midnight on the 22nd, the inflow rate of the reservoir reached 18,900 cubic meters per second, close to a once-in-a-century level, which is 19,200 cubic meters per second. In addition to the Feilaixia Reservoir, the Leqiangxia Water Conservancy Hub in Lechang City, Shaoguan, is also releasing floodwaters, increasing the outflow rate to 2,000 cubic meters per second. The Guangdong Provincial Department of Water Resources stated that they are also coordinating the flood discharge of 15 important water conservancies in the Bay River Basin and 12 cascade shipping hubs on the main stem of the Lianjiang River. Residents of Yangshan County in Qingyuan stated that the floods are related to the release of floodwaters from the reservoir. They said they heard that flooding began in their area after sluice gates were opened in Lianzhou. They felt helpless and caught completely off guard because the authorities did not issue prior notice. The flood came too fast. One resident described waking up to find themselves already submerged in floodwaters. People also left comments under the government announcements of flood releases, questioning why they did not do it earlier. Some people believe that releasing even a little water could prevent flooding in places like Qingyuan, but others revealed, even if only one gate is opened downstream, it will still flood. However, the authorities have choices. Qingyuan won't flood, but Guangzhou will. They will choose which area to flood to minimize losses. Downstream of Qingyuan is Foshan. However, there is Sanshui District to hold it up, as it has 3 major rivers flowing into the sea. If Foshan cannot hold on, Guangzhou will be finished. Part of Zhaoqing is a reserved flood discharge area. If a major flood really occurs, the authorities will definitely prioritize protecting Guangzhou, and floodwaters will be released into Foshan. Some people also said that if they had started discharging water on the 18th, there wouldn't have been any disasters. Releasing water during heavy rain not only harms themselves, but also causes downstream areas to suffer. They wonder if it's possible to empty all the dams and reservoirs upstream before the Qingming festival in April, avoiding water storage as much as possible, and then slowly releasing the water during the rainy season. Would this solve the flooding problem? Others commented that these reservoirs are inadequate, as their limited capacity fills up within a few hours of heavy rain. If the gates aren't opened, the downstream areas would be in big trouble if the dam collapses. Some people also reported that during the flood, communication in Jiangwan town, Shaoguan, was interrupted, and they were unable to contact the town. The residents could only help themselves. According to the Yangcheng Evening News, Wujiang District responded that Jiangwan town is still in a state of disconnection, and the casualties cannot be determined. Hydraulic expert Wang Weiluo once pointed out that many floods in China are man-made, because the water levels and flood discharge of reservoirs and dams are all uniformly controlled by the government authorities. If the CCP authorities feel that the situation is not critical, they will release less water. If the situation is dire, they will release more water, posing a greater threat to downstream areas. As for how many people died, they will not report it or choose to underreport it. They never had a truthful report. As for why the authorities do not warn the public in advance about flood discharge, a CCP official once revealed the truth. It is not possible to notify in advance because if the public disagrees, what can be done? They will demand compensation, and it will take hundreds of billions to compensate for crops, livestock, seedlings, and burial grounds. If it is claimed to be a natural disaster, just give them a few packs of instant noodles and they will be grateful. A sea of water as soon as it rains has become a common chronic problem in Chinese cities in the past decade or so. Why hasn't the waterlogging problem been solved after so many years? Some analysis points out this is not a technical issue, but a problem of government inaction, which stems from political considerations. If local officials had built a first-rate sewer system, they wouldn't be able to showcase it to visiting leaders, since the sewers are dark and dirty. This would tarnish their image. Leaders prefer to see skyscrapers and good GDP performance, so lower-level officials naturally cater to their preferences in order to advance their careers and wealth. This is the current situation in the CCP's government. The problem lies in the system. Non-elected regimes always have such problems. Writer Victor Hugo once wrote, "The sewer is the conscience of the city. However, in Chinese cities, although the above-ground construction is glamorous, there is not much conscience." In contrast, ancient China had sophisticated urban planning and drainage systems. Many drainage systems in Beijing were built during the Ming and Qing dynasties, including open and hidden drains and ancient sewage pipelines. After nearly 600 years, many underground pipelines are still in use. The Forbidden City, built 600 years ago, remains intact despite heavy rain. According to historical records, no matter how heavy the rain, there has never been water blockage in the Forbidden City. Some analyses point out that for many years, Guangdong has adopted a series of man-made measures that violate natural laws and are unfavorable for flood discharge. For example, large-scale construction of houses, roads, and parks along the riverbanks has led to artificial narrowing of the river channels. Additionally, to meet the needs of water transportation and irrigation, numerous dams and shiplocks have been built on the main and tributary rivers, hindering the rapid passage of floodwaters. When extremely heavy rain comes, the flow of water in the river will be obstructed, causing water levels to rise and triggering localized flooding. In recent decades, due to the rise in land value, land prices along the riverbanks have continued to rise, especially in large and medium-sized cities. The phenomenon of competing with rivers for land has become increasingly serious, leading to further artificial narrowing of rivers, disrupting the natural balance of rivers. The floods of the Yangtze River and the Pearl River Delta are also because of these reasons. China, traditionally limited by a centrally planned economy, has often adopted an approach of defying natural processes in managing its rivers. Consequently, many view the recent flooding as nature's backlash. The lesson of the flood in the Bay River in Guangdong reminds people that they must live in harmony with nature and not to violate the laws of nature. Lacking scientific research and a deep understanding of nature, the Chinese government has hastily attempted to alter and dominate natural processes, aligning with the CCP's principle of man over nature. This will ultimately end in failure. Ignoring long-term interests for short-term gains will ultimately harm us humans. History has given too many lessons. The problem lies in leaders who are still obstinate and pursue political achievements without considering the consequences.